Well, let's get it on with the news. And in our first story, a member of parliament for North Tone, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, is challenging the position of the minority chief whip, Muntaka Mubarak, to the referral of the 3 absentee MPs to the Privileges Committee. Now, Speaker Alban Bagbin has referred Dome Kwabenya MP, Sarah Adjwasafo, Asin Central MP, Kennedy Ejapong, and Ayawaso Central MP, Henry Quarty, to answer questions on why they missed sittings for more than 15 days. This was after a series of petitions had been filed by persons including non-MPs. We'll hear from Mr. Ablakwa in a bit. First, though, here's Muntaka Mubarak saying the Speaker was wrong to have allowed non-MPs that right.
Your statement, Mr. Speaker, your statement is rightly placed on our rules. Mr. Speaker, where we disagree with you is your conclusion. Mr. Speaker, I want to make reference.
Why did you say where we disagree with
where
you?
I disagree with you is your conclusion. Mr. Speaker, and I make reference to our standing order 76. And with your permission, I read. 76.1. Every application to Parliament shall, and I think the word there is shall, be in the form of a petition. And every petition must be presented by a member of Parliament, who shall be responsible for the observance of the rules contained in Appendix A. Mr. Speaker, I heard you said, you yourself alluded to the fact that members of Parliament could raise matter that could be referred to privileges, and civil society could equally do same. Mr. Speaker, with the greatest of respect to your office, I disagree with you vehemently when you, Mr. Speaker, want to do that yourself. Because it has to be a member of Parliament who has to do that according to our rules. And Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Member, read the standing order again.
Mr. Speaker, I will be grateful to listen to
Read the standing order again.
Mr. Speaker, it will be good to listen to me. When I'm done, you have the privilege to make your
Minority Chief Whip,
Mr. Speaker, you have to first
read the standing orders again.
Mr. Speaker, I have read what I want to read, and I've stopped where I want to stop.
Honorable Member,
fair, you listen to me.
So that was the minority chief whip with the Speaker of Parliament. We can now hear from the North Tongue MP who was part of the petitioners. Now, he disagrees fundamentally with the minority chief whip.
The Honourable Muntaka is saying that it's better a member of Parliament raises it. The floodgate should not be open. The Speaker should not be acting on, petitions from outsiders. I hold a different view. And remember the Amwatin era, the Privileges Committee had said that they could grant him, leave as long as he wishes until, he's done with his legal woes that he found himself in. When he's out of those shackles, then he could come back and take his seat. Professor Kweku Asare went to court, and on 11th December 2008, the Court of Appeal held that what the Privileges Committee did was wrong. You cannot keep the people of Nkranza at the time, indefinitely unrepresented, and that once you go beyond 15 days, the seat must be declared vacant. I am aligned with the Court of Appeal decision, so I'm not really in the Muntaka camp. I am saying that, look, I don't care how the Speaker... Look, the Speaker on his own, my reading of the standing orders, the Speaker on his own, even without anybody petitioning, the Speaker on his own could have asked the Privileges Committee to take up the matter and deal with absentee MPs. Look, we must build a strong institution, an institution of repute, an institution with a good image. How do we feel when we are always being bashed? That, people are not coming to Parliament, colleagues are not coming, so we form a quorum. So many meetings have to be adjourned because a quorum is not formed and all of that. And I am disappointed that even as an institution, we don't seem to have the internal mechanism to detect. If it hadn't been some of us who did the research, and it emerged that 3. Earlier, the focus had been on only one person, the Honourable Adjwasafo of Dome Kwabenya. And the irony is that one of the people who was hard on her, always bashing her, unleashing a lot of venom on her, He himself, apparently, has questions to answer. He's been caught in the web. So I am sad that as an institution, and that's why I've been calling for parliamentary reforms, so that as an institution, once MPs cross the 15-day absentee mark, it will be detected. We can automate, we can use technology.
Well, the Member of Parliament wants the body to institute structures that will make MPs more accountable to the public.
Parliaments are amending their standing orders, because it's House of Representatives. It is because not everybody can be. When democracy started in Greece, everybody was at the polis, everybody was there, and representing themselves. But because of the growing population, we can't have everybody even in a stadium. So we are representing the people. But it doesn't mean that people out there don't have useful contributions, valuable contributions to make. So I want us to even amend our standing orders where campaigns can start, people can sign petitions when, for example, they feel strongly about the matter. Take an issue in point. This campaign I have been on against abandoning the presidential jet and using expensive, ultra-luxury chartered aircraft by the president. Imagine we had in our standing orders provisions where members of the general public can petition, and then Parliament can then debate it and compel the president not to ever abandon the presidential jet and waste our scarce resources on his creature comfort, traveling like a Russian oligarch, a British aristocrat, and an Arabian king at the same time. If we had those opportunities, I think that leaders will even be more accountable. So I am all for the general public playing a role, making an input, and let us not close the door to them, and let us be more open, let us be more transparent.
Now, away from Parliament, Education Minister Dr Owusu Afriyie has announced that government would be rolling out an SHS affiliation program that will link new and struggling SHSs to existing high-performance schools. Speaking during the 70th anniversary celebration of the St. Thomas Aquinas Senior High School, Dr. Owusu said the program would ensure that such new schools learned about the best practices in the high-performing schools to impact them.
But some schools are not doing well. It takes many years for some new schools to do well. Therefore, we have begun a process where every new school is going to be affiliated with an existing high-performing school. So, if the school is new, before we open, another school will be identified to affiliate with them and to support them. For example, we have new schools opening in Ashanti region, and we've worked, like Pokware, which happens to be a Catholic school. We know Pokware is a high-performing school, and we are affiliating some schools with them, so that they can just go there and learn about the best practice of Pokware, what makes Pokware, instead of staying there for 20 years and that school is not competing. So within the Catholic Church, you also have a few new schools that are struggling. We have to work with you to make sure that affiliation also works for those schools, because we have some high-performing schools, and there's no reason why we shouldn't do a formal affiliation so that schools that are struggling will also perform better. So that's something that we're going to be doing with the church, with those schools that are mission schools, so the young ones coming up will be able to learn from schools like yours and be able to move forward in such a way that we can provide and produce the people with the human capacity and the human capital that we need as a nation.
He also revealed that 4 out of the 10 STEM SHSs being constructed across the country have been completed and will be opened this year.
We cannot compete with the rest of the world. We cannot keep up with the rest of the world if we don't move in the area of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The era of rote memorization is over. The era where the best and the brightest is the one who can memorize all the notes from the teacher is over. If we get stuck in that kind of education system, our nation cannot compete. And that is why the president has now given the authority to us to implement STEM and has seriously made investment in STEM like none other. There's never been a time that so much has been poured into science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education. There are 10 schools under construction. At least we have finished 4 of them, and they're going to be open this year. So this year, if you go to Abomosu, you're going to see a school, a high school that you may think is a university. Abomosu STEM Academy has 12 science labs. 12 science labs. We're changing the way we do secondary education in these STEM universities.
Now, though prison service continues to strive towards achieving the objective, the target is sometimes missed due to financial and logistical constraints. The Kumasi Central Prison, in its effort to meet reformation of inmates, is strengthening the relationship with the various institutions, including religious entities, to deal with challenges. Nana Yaujima joined the church service in the Kumasi Central Prison and filed this report.
Instrumentalist of the prison's church backs a singing group from the Agrek Kromwase SDA Church as they lead a song ministration in worship. Visitors from the SDA Church take to the dance floor as some inmates also enjoy the songs. The sermon today focused on reformation of all present. Many of the inmates are either enrolled in formal or technical education offered by the service, but the facility is challenged with infrastructure for the reformation process. The formal education unit here runs both the junior and senior high schools courses from the same classroom as the inmates take turns to study.
We have a school here, both junior high and then senior high.
Superintendent Emmanuel Labi explains the need for partnership with corporate and religious groups for the reformation.
Whatever we provide for them and whatever government provides for them will not be adequate for them. So we are encouraging people to come and support. In every small way that you have, you can come and support these inmates so that their lives will be better. When they are able to reform and go out to be better citizens, it will benefit the whole society.
Already, the Seventh-day Adventist Church at Agrek Kromwase offers support to inmates. Michael Donkokunedu is head pastor.
Some came here as a result of their wrongdoings. Some also came here because probably an incident happened and they entered there and they were just like captured. And we saw it that we could also be in the same situation. So we should come to their aid and see to their welfare and their well-being. So we are entreating all others outside their families and churches, organizations and institutions to come to their aid.
The reformation process here at the prisons will need sustained support to achieve the goal of integrating inmates into society. Nana Yaujima, JoyNews, Kumasi.
Now, in our next story, the Middle Belt Development Authority, as part of its mandate to provide infrastructure in the various districts, has constructed a new market complex for the Nkoranza North District of the Bono East region. The move, according to the Chief Executive Officer of the authority, Joe Dankwa, would aid maize production and open the communities around to more business opportunities. Bono East Regional Correspondent Anas Abed has more.
The new market complex constructed by the Middle Belt Development Authority for the people of the Nkoranza North District is to, amongst other things, facilitate the general economic activities of the area. Chief Executive Officer of the authority, Joe Dankwa, during a brief handing over ceremony, disclosed to JoyNews that the market, due to its strategic location, would help increase maize production as well as help open the communities around to more investment opportunities.
Basically, it's to boost maize production within the Nkranza enclaves. And we all know Nkranza is one of the areas that they grow a lot of maize. And to carry all the maize from here to see Techima market is a little bit far away, or to Ajura market is a little bit far away. So if they have their own local market where they can organize their maize and bring the maize to their own local market, I think it will help them. Apart from maybe helping them, it will also create businesses, local businesses for them. Because markets will create businesses and also boom the local economy. So these are the reasons why we decided to settle on this market at this very particular place.
District Chief Executive for Nkranza North, Peter Kweku-Osei, noted that the new market will help minimize post-harvest losses as well as boost the lives of the farmers and the district's local revenue.
Post-harvest losses has been one major problem that comes with farming. So once they cultivate and they have easy and ready market for the product, it adds to the yields and the benefit. Then as the farmers also make money, they are able to take care of their children and other things, which is also helpful. Then as an assembly, we also depend much on revenue to, do whatever we have to do in this district. So you also get revenue from the activities of the markets. So I think it's going to help this district a lot.
Chief of Krukese and Krafohene of the Nkranza Traditional Council, Nana Kofi Nyame, expressed gratitude to the authorities and noted that the market would aid trading activities across the area. You know very well that when you live in a community without a market and you have to always travel to neighboring communities to buy basic items, you are affected economically. So this facility here would help boost our economic activities. The project, constructed at a cost of 340,000 Ghana cedis, also has an ultramodern toilet facility to help deal with open defecation in the area. Reporting for Joy News, Anas Sabit, Krukese in the Nkranza North District.
Well, to wrap the news, Palm Sunday, which was yesterday, is a day that marks the beginning of the Holy Week on the Christian calendar. Christians across the world marked Palm Sunday by going on a procession waving palm branches. The day, which marks the final Sunday of Lent, is believed to symbolize the triumphant entry of Jesus, the Christ, into Jerusalem, where he rode on a donkey days before his arrest and crucifixion. We bring you some sights and sounds from the streets of Accra.
It is the first Sunday after 2 years of closure of churches as part of the safety protocols to contain the COVID-19 pandemic. With some of the safety protocols relaxed, some churches hit the streets of Accra for a procession to mark Palm Sunday. Palm Sunday, also known as Passion Sunday, is the first day of the Holy Week and the Sunday before Easter in the Christian calendar, celebrating the triumphant entry of Jesus Christ into Jerusalem. The minister in charge at the Redemption Congregation Presbyterian Church at Kokomlemle North, Reverend Mrs. Esther Afriyie, explained the relevance of Palm Sunday to Christianity.
Palm Sunday is a special day in the calendar of all Christians. There are specific celebrations that Christians all over the world don't take it for granted. and one of them is what we are celebrating today. You saw us so happy because we believe in the fact that without the triumphant entry of Jesus into Jerusalem, there would not be anything like the crucifixion, and especially the total account that ends in the redemption of humanity.
Some children also shared with us their understanding of the day.
Palm Sunday is celebrated to remember the triumphant entry into Jerusalem. When Jesus was sitting on a donkey to enter Jerusalem, the people nearby removed their clothing and some palm branches and lay it on the floor for Jesus to pass on.
Palm Sunday means God is the King.
We celebrate Palm Sunday because when Jesus came, he was a slave, but we want to show that he's the King.
Palm Sunday means that the coming of the Kings of Kings.
The Reverend Minister urged Christians to emulate the humility and love that Christ exhibited. Mausi Numon's reports for JoyNews.
Hi there, thank you for joining us for the news review. We'll be joined shortly by Executive Secretary for COPEC, Duncan Amwa, but let's dig into the papers. The Daily Graphic this morning saying government restricts maize, soya bean exports policy to ensure food security. Let's bring you some highlights of that. And the government has restricted the export from the country of maize and soya beans, two important commodities in the poultry subsector. It is part of measures to ensure food security and increase local poultry and livestock production. Subsequently, the Plant Protection and Regulatory Services Directorate has stopped issuing phytosanitary certificates for the export of both commodities. This follows a directive from the Ministry of Trade and Industry to restrict their export to ensure the availability of the produce whose production is subsidized. And now, the context is that President Akufo-Addo issued an executive approval for a temporary restriction to be placed on maize and soya bean exports in January this year. Consequently, stakeholders such as the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, the Ministry of the Interior, the Ministry of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development, the Ministry of Finance, the Ghana Revenue Authority, the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, and others will soon meet to discuss how best to implement the export restriction. Now, data available from the World Integrated Trade Solutions indicates that the export of maize from Ghana amounted to 250,147 kilograms in 2019. It also reported that the export of flour and meals of soya beans from the country was 54,500 kilograms for the same period. You can check out more details in the Daily Graphic newspaper. But of course, on the back of happenings across the world, we would also want to guarantee some food sufficiency or food security, and that is why this measure is being adopted. Reconstruction exercise, not load shedding. Now, it has been in the news, circulating on social media, that some 84 days of doomsday were expected. GRIDCO, together with the ECG, are debunking this, assuring consumers that this is not what is going to happen. Let's go to page 16 for details. And the management of the Ghana Grid Company Limited, that is GRIDCO, has assured the public that the reconstruction works that started recently will not lead to load shedding, popularly known as doomsday. A joint statement issued by GRIDCO and the ECG in Accra yesterday said reconstruction work on GRIDCO's transmission lines had commenced since last Saturday and assured the public that the work would not orchestrate power outages. And so that is the latest in terms of that development. COA GPM allocates $2 million towards global peace campaign. That story is also on page 16. And if you're wondering which entity this is, now, the Center of Awareness Global Peace Mission, a non-governmental organization committed to promoting world peace, has allocated that sum of money, $2 million, towards a campaign for global peace. The amount is to support a 5-year strategic plan launched to promote world peace. Already, 24 vehicles to be used in the campaign have been purchased. The founder and president general of COA GPM, Professor Samuel Ato Duncan, said the campaign was a selfless movement committed to bringing peace to the world. Let's check out some other stories, and you would see on the very front page of the Daily Graphic a scene that you likely have spotted before, right here in Accra, in the center of town. Cattle take over Central Business District. How can this happen anywhere? Ask yourself, how does this happen anywhere? But it happens in Accra and other, big towns or cities. Now, efforts to make the national capital, Accra, the cleanest city in Africa, are being thwarted by the invasion of some principal streets and areas by cattle. Now, a week-long observation by the Daily Graphic has revealed the invasion by herds of cattle of the Central Business District. It is particularly common on the Graphic Road, precisely the Toyota Beyeman traffic intersection near the Graphic Road BRT flyover and the Agbogloshi stretch. You would see them practically every day. Yesterday, cameraman Ebo Hansen captured some of the stray animals roaming. The most worrying aspect was that there were no herdsmen herding the cattle. So you get it. The inconvenience to pedestrians, motorists, and everybody. The fact that this can result in accidents, the fact that someone's cow or whatever could get injured, and that would also lead to many problems. I mean, the injured cow could block the road, it could create vehicular traffic, anything could happen. Someone could be gored by the horns of these cattle. All of these things, yet you see them happening in this country as though we were some sort of, I don't like using these terms, but banana republic. Look at how lunatics line our streets. Where does that happen? It happens in Accra, Ghana. Look at how cattle, they create such an inconvenience. It happens right here in Accra. And sometimes it takes us doing this, putting this, as a major headline. And it's still happening in the country. For how many decades has this happened? And when are we going to find some solutions to this? They are creating chaos. Chaos. And we look on. City authorities, we look on. Mayor of Accra, you look on. Henry Kwati, Greater Accra Regional Minister. This will definitely not make Accra the cleanest city in Africa. Definitely not. And they go around and they are, easing themselves and all of that on our streets. Anyway, sometimes this country just makes me, but it is what it is. Let's look at some other stories. Up to 65% of Africans have had COVID-19. Up to 65% of Africans have had COVID-19. That's data from the World Health Organization. And Barrow, I'm talking about Gambian President Adama Barrow's party, narrowly wins legislative polls. And tying the pieces together, we also know that in France, one danger that people have looked at, Marine Le Pen. And she has made it to the second round. As of yesterday, we're looking at around 23%, but now about 25%. President Emmanuel Macron with 28%. So about a gap of about 3 percentage points. The two of them are going for the runoff, and it's going to be a pretty tight call. But it was similar the last time Emmanuel Macron came to power. So we'll see how things pan out. But for industry watchers, or for those who watch these things, first of all, Marine Le Pen is friends with Vladimir Putin. She is also friends with Viktor Orban of Hungary. And Viktor Orban is one of those who hasn't sanctioned Russia. And we all know the situation with Vladimir Putin. In fact, if France votes for her, the implications are that they could be the standout country in the EU that doesn't support sanctions on Vladimir Putin's Russia. And it's a whole mix. The other side that concerns a lot of Africans, and we must situate it, give it context, is the fact that she is anti-immigration. She is very nationalistic. Think of, what's his name? Donald John Trump 2.0. That is Marine Le Pen. And so it would be interesting to find out when the second polls are held, whether Emmanuel Macron, who claims that on the back of, the Russian engagement, he has been the arrowhead when it comes to the EU engaging Vladimir Putin. His attention was diverted a bit, and that has resulted in Marine Le Pen getting the following that she has. We'll see how the cookie crumbles in France. But let's also, there's a story about secondary education, success story of SEIP. That's on page 7 of the paper. On the back page, Ukuma Pema. And interestingly, I would be talking all about it, and but You see, Kumasi Asante Kotoko, we like to keep it even. We've opened a 16-point gap between us and the Phobia boys who couldn't fool anything yesterday. I know, they'll come after me, but anything. But yesterday was another win for Kumasi Asante Kotoko. Like I said, they've opened a 16-point gap between them and last year's winners, Accra Hearts of Oak. Bechem United on 44 points, Indiana Stars on 39, Great Olympics on 39 as well, and Asante Kotoko on 52 points. Some are contesting the penalty. Maybe we should go back and look at it, but Hearts of Oak has had similar penalties against other teams. Was it Bechem or others? We didn't see anybody complaining about that. The Ghanaian Times newspaper now. UHAS confers honorary Doctor of Science degree on Dr. Japan. Christians worldwide mark Palm Sunday. I was there. Yeah, I was there too. Deputy speakers can vote ruling. Plaintiff back to Supreme Court. That's Justice Abdullah. I'll be giving you some details of that story on page 17 shortly. He prays for a review of the decision. And CRI, Child Rights International, drags Attorney General to Supreme Court over child streetism. I was talking about these cattle on our streets. I was talking about lunatics, our brothers and sisters who have some situation upstairs and they need our help. We have to help them, not leave them on the streets. Here's another big problem. Mendicants, these street urchins, the children on our streets, another hazard. Hey. And school placement exercise, 93.4% of students placed nationwide. But let me just say a very good morning to Duncan Amwa, Executive Secretary of COPEC, who now joins the conversation. Good morning, Duncan.
Benjamin, good morning. Good morning to your viewers and your cherished producers as well.
Right. Duncan, something really, gets me ticking in the wrong way. And maybe you can summarize for me. The Daily Graphic this morning has a bit about cattle on the major streets of Accra, Graphic Road and others. There's also, I cited the bit about brothers and sisters who have some mental disorder who are on the streets, roaming freely. The other day I heard of one who attacked somebody, and that happens. There are these street children as well, all of them on the streets. And we want this to be the cleanest city in Africa. What's your take? Quick one.
Well, Benjamin, when you see some of these fall-ups from societal challenges, you're simply dealing with institutions that are not working.
Right.
I do not think that the local assemblies have no role to play in ensuring that the streets are actually rid of these young men who now move in groups. And sometimes it gets a bit frightening when out of nowhere they just, gather around your vehicle and are giving you funds just so you can dole out money.
Yeah. It becomes scary. It becomes scary, Duncan, just as you're saying. And imagine being claustrophobic or something and having them, because sometimes they surround you. It's same with those who want to come and by force wipe your windscreen wipers and, your windscreens and all of that. It gets scary. I have a friend, just to share, who says one day she denied one of these children, and right when she was about to move, you know what the little boy did? He ran his, finger across the throat, basically threatening her. And all of these things are happening on our streets, and we're doing nothing about them, Duncan.
Well, then, clearly, authorities have seen. I'm sure this is not a situation they are unaware of. The typical Ghanaian, sympathetic thing. When I come across them, initially you are forced to want to give them some money to keep body and soul together.
Right.
But then at the point I also realized, I was also part of the problem. The more you give them money, the more you encourage them to stay there. Now, if you also don't give them money, because it becomes a mob sort of thing, it becomes a scary thing what any of them will do to your car. So
sometimes they scratch your car while they're there. When you refuse them money, they'll just scratch your car or dent it in a way, and you go and later find out they've scratched your car. They've done it to me before.
And authorities are probably quiet. I'm thinking the local assemblies are not living up to their job of decentralization. I am not certain that we would need officials from social welfare with the police to go chasing these guys. If authorities decided that you don't cross this path with your cattle, these cattle don't have engines or do not have flying, capabilities to say that they just flew and onto the street they landed. You see them moving from one part to the other. If you give these guys an indication, this is where your cattle is to graze. If we find it here, we'll confiscate it, and that's it. I'm certain that the right signal would have been sent. But again, the typical Ghanaian, mentality. Obia yede ope, obia didi wode jumemu. But a cattle, then if you are unlucky and one crosses you, that's the end of your vehicle.
Yeah.
Those are
If not the end of your life.
It could be the end of your life, actually. Those are very heavy animals that will cause a lot of damage, but you will find them sometimes crossing very busy streets, and it's like they have a lot more right to the road than even the vehicles that the roads are made for. The institutions that ought to sit up and work, we simply think have abdicated those duties and are not living up to it. But clearly, there is a challenge. And Benjamin, the most frightening of this now is the kind of mobsters you are seeing gather around traffic lights. And, they will have to force to wipe your screen sometimes. And when you even they don't do it, it's like, oh, you're the bad guy. You don't want to give us money. These are dangers we are facing. They snatch people's phones sometimes, as I've probably been told during rush hour. If you are not lucky, you're talking on the phone, your windows down. So we are creating dangers. Unfortunately, the local assemblies that should be going around to ensure that these things are disbanded seem not to be doing much. And I think probably maybe the local government minister should be told directly that these are things that we expect you to do, not just have this abaye to be chasing traders who illegally set up. These ones are also illegally amassing on our streets, and we think that the earlier we disband them, put them in schools, or get them some vocation to go attend, the better it could be for all of us.
Just to feed in with that story in terms of the children specifically, so we can move on. On page 23 of the Ghanaian Times newspaper, it says, Child Rights International has sued the Attorney General at the Supreme Court over child streetism. Now, the applicant is asking the court to declare that the government of Ghana is in breach of Articles 15.1, 2, 13.1 and 35.4 of the 1992 Constitution for not ensuring that children receive special protection against exposure to physical and moral hazards as enshrined in the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. In the writ filed on March 3, the applicant, Mr. Dr Afriyie, the executive director of Child Rights International, stated that child streetism posed a threat to the nation's security and urged the court to compel the AG, the principal legal advisor to the government, to resolve this conundrum. But let's get into other stories now. And a matter that we're going to be looking at today, school placement exercise. 93.4% of students have been placed nationwide. We've had concerns about visually impaired students who have suffered the brunt of the process, not been allocated schools. We've had instances where, per what we've heard from some of our callers, an entire batch whose results, a stay was placed on their results, and then later it was taken off, no placement. I've had personal calls, so many of them, parents who sometimes have to go through the back door just to get, things happening. While if the system were as efficient as we want it to be, maybe some of these Goro boys and girls wouldn't have the opportunity. But that is the take here. A total of 518,717 students out of the 555,353 who qualified for placement have successfully been placed into various senior high and technical, vocational, educational and training institutes across the country as of last Friday. The figure represents 93.4% of those qualified for placement. But What have you heard? What is your personal experience, if any, when it comes to the school placement exercise, Duncan?
Benjamin, I'm not sure my experiences will be any further from what you probably just enumerated.
Right.
Some bills being posted to female institutions, and I think somebody was actually posted to a driving school or something. The things you come across here and there, and then you have a majority of students now also asking for certain schools, which they cannot be given.
Right.
I do think that we are not improving the system well enough. At the outset of pre-senior high secondary education, one expected that rollout would have factored in the grades of schools you have, where the usually grade A schools like the Achimota, the Presec, the Augustine, the Prempeh, often, schools that are highly sought after. Now, one of the things I would have wished gets done is to allow some parents, at least, those whose wards are able to make the required grades to these schools, if you give them some 50% quota, right, those who would want to pay fees or can afford to pay something for their wards, right, you leave them some 50%, especially when these kids fall within the grades of 6 and probably 9 or 12,
right,
and are qualified to be there, and the parents can indicate their preparedness to still support these schools with funds, while the government also looks at a way of paying for the other students who don't have anything and probably cannot afford but are so brilliant. But it looks like we've lumped everything together. There needs to be a certain dialogue and education in this country, because clearly the systems that we put in there, hoping to achieve certain ends, seem not to be achieving them much. Others have been successfully placed, but what happens to those who haven't been as lucky and are probably still going through, bribe payments just to get their awards? And from what we gather around, you hear some parents talk of 5,000 cedis in order to get their awards placed.
Right.
These are money that would have easily gone to the state,
right,
actually. If you allow the parents to pay 3,000 or 5,000,
I've heard of anything between 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 6,000. And one matter that has come to my attention, for some of them, they complain they've not been treated fairly. You know how, if you went to choose a Bishop Herman, my school, my alma mater, for example, as your second choice, you would probably never get in because it's an A-class school. Some people tell me that they went for some B-class schools at the time when they were applying for their children, their wards. And then by the time the placement started, these schools, some of them had been changed from B class to A class. So for whoever chose them as a second option then, B class or third option, you see what happens. So it creates a lot of chaos in the system. And it's really sad. It's really sad, Duncan. Maybe your wrap-up thoughts on that.
I do think that we can maximize whatever gain that we need to make at the education front. If authorities start again, took a second look at the systems in place and how to modify them. I do not also subscribe wholly to this whole computer thing, because take it or leave it. You will still get challenges. Maybe it should be a hybrid, a mix situation where in the past the headmasters used to converge, select their candidates or students. You could give them some 20-30%, quota.
Right.
So that students who really clearly do fall within their admission pickup,
right,
are not left behind simply because the computer somewhere decided to place the student from Accra to Sandema, and that is what the computer has done. So your ward would have to simply go to. There should be some flexibility with that system, whilst also taking a second look at the whole free education concept and see how parents who are clearly still being pleased now can contribute to the system to make education a lot more robust.
Right. Duncan, in the next 2 or so minutes, let's wrap. I want us to look at a few papers, just a few headlines from them. Republic Press, former First Lady Emily Akuffo dead. Our condolences to not just her family, but the entire country. JAK pays tribute to Veep's wife, of course, John Ajakum Kufuor. Akachi on fire, police killed 2 in bloody clash. I'll be getting into that story, so you give us your quick take. I'm ready for Privileges Committee. Kenny Japon rants, and UHAS confers Doctor of Science on Dr. Japon, or Dr. Japon, I should say. Now, I want us to tie these 2 stories together. 2 died at Akachi Youth Police clash. It's on page 6 of the Daily Guide. It's also on page 3 of the Republic Press newspaper. And it talks about uneasy calm in Akachi, in the Akachi South municipality of the Volta region, following a violent clash between the police and youth of the area. So far, 2 persons identified as Seto and Hamza are said to have died, while an unspecified number of youth are injured. It has to do with a police van as well, ramming into some motorists, 3 of them rather than 2 on a vehicle, some suspicion of there being criminals and all of that, which their families and the people in Akachi deny. But in the interim, we have lost these, young people. And again, there is the accusation that the police is trying to cover up, because the vehicle involved has quickly been fixed and all of that, a whole lot of stuff. Tie that into this Central Region case where a physically challenged man has allegedly been assaulted by the police. So many things happening nowadays on the back of the interactions of the police with ordinary citizens. Quick take, Duncan?
Benjamin, again, the police as an institution would not always get it right. Sometimes they do get it wrong. It doesn't give our people also the license to attack them.
Right.
I do believe they should use institutions in getting redress. The media is always available and open to talk about excesses. I do condemn, though, on certain terms, the attack by the Akachi youth on the police. I've also picked snippets of information pertaining to some young men who were apparently crushed by a police riot control van and killed. I do think that the IGP should get into these matters and ensure that whichever of the officers that probably applied unnecessary pressure leading to the loss of these lives are brought to, order and immediately so as to restore that confidence that the people of Akachi seem to have lost with the police interaction. Whoever also assaulted physically disabled, I do not think that is what the uniform is meant to be used for, as has been demonstrated amply by the current IGP and the top echelon of the police. Before you take me out, however, there was a story you took on earlier about COVID and the World Health Organization.
Yeah, 65% of Africans
have been exposed to COVID one way or the other.
Right.
If we take stock of this whole COVID enterprise, as I call it, I think that Africa was, marooned into some event that clearly didn't have much to do with its people. Send malaria to the West. I'm sure that would be a greater pandemic. We live with it. We're able to contain it. You talk of this whole COVID thing destroying our economies, and how many people are we talking of losing? 1,000. Road accidents will kill more than that. Malaria alone would kill far, far more, yet it's not being treated as a pandemic. So sometimes I think that our health officials would need to evaluate some of these things. Flu, the herd immunity bit will kick in.
Right.
Like my professor would often say, go to gyms now and tell them about COVID. They live together, they eat together, they do all sorts of things together. Even if they contracted it, there is a higher chance of their immune system kicking that thing out. Yet, we went, with the West, chasing something that clearly didn't portend as much danger. We are not dealing with 5,000, 1,000. Those people, unfortunately, as it may be, having lost their life, may clearly have had one underlying condition or the other, though regrettable. But the kind of damage COVID seemed to have done to our economy, I think it was excessive, and our health officials would need to have reevaluated whatever the West was presenting to us.
Well, very, very cogent analysis there. Important points you make. Just two headlines to wrap. $4 billion to cushion African economies against Ukraine crisis. That's according to the professor. That's the head of Afri-Exim Professor Benedict Orama. There's also the BNFT. Tourists spend 60% of budget on accommodation. And as we talk about expanding our tourism market, if accommodation alone is taken 60% of what they bring into the country, what does that mean? But Duncan Amwa, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great day. Auntie Abba, I met you yesterday. I know you watch the show every morning. Good morning to you. And I have this message from Joseph Odum coming through. You say, I'm not sure of this, but because you put it out there, I want to use your medium to wish my former boss, Mr. Stan Jose Dugbe, a happy birthday. God bless your future. Stan, if today happens to be your birthday, in fact, well then, a beautiful day to you, and do have a blast. Up next, we have sports. We'll be telling you all about Liverpool, Manchester City, the Reds and the Citizens in that modern day classic yesterday. Do stay. Well, let's get into our big stories, and we commence with that all-important bit about some police brutality, allegations of police brutality in Akachi in the Volta region. 2 people have so far lost their lives in that altercation, which led to some reprisals from the youth. The Akachi police station affected as well, and as you can see there, some of those who had been shot in the melee. And it has turned out to be another situation where people are talking about police brutality and how the police engages the ordinary citizenry. Well, joining us for that conversation this morning, we have Selom Ameza, an eyewitness who was on social media posting a lot of happenings there. We also have Wanda Gatepe, assemblyman for Akachi. Both of them join the conversation. Let me start with on this one. Selom, I just want to find out from you, break it down for us, the incidents of the last few days culminating in this act which has led some people dead. Just narrate the story to us, Selom.
Okay, good morning to your listeners. I guess my voice is clear.
Your voice is very clear.
All right, so what happened is that on the 8th of April, on which I ran by name Ned. So the 2 of them were walking when another guy on a motorbike, his name is Jamilu, he stopped to give them a lift to the house. So they just got onto the bike, and about 100 meters, they saw this police van. And the police van is the riot van in the Kachi. It's been patrolling the town. So the van is said to have stopped them, and the guys didn't stop. And then the van chased them. So as the van chased them, he chased them, and then he knocked them from behind and ran them onto the metal barricade by the road. You see the metal barricades they do on the road. The police van actually rammed the boys on the bike into the barricade. So Etor, the guy, was at the back. So Etor fell and then hit the back of his head onto the street. So then he had a fracture in the skull. So the police took the guys and took them to the hospital that Friday night. When they took them to the hospital, they handcuffed the guys to the bed and told the nurses they were criminals. That's what we heard, that they told the nurses they were criminals. And after telling the nurses the criminals, they took the guys their phones away to prevent them from reaching their families. So the whole night, the guys weren't able to call their families for anything. So it was the next morning that Jamilu, the guy riding the motorbike, he saw a nurse and they begged the nurse to give her phone to him to make a call. So he called his father, and then it was when the father and the families came before they realized Seto's case was serious. So the doctors then examined him, and then they realized he had had a serious fracture in his head, and he was rushed to the hospital. Prior to that, his head was only bandaged. So then they rushed him from the Akachi Municipal Hospital to Reach Hospital, where he died in the morning. So when he died in the morning, when the youth got to town early Sunday morning, that was yesterday, the youth of Akachi were angry, and then they rose up to the police station. And one of the reasons why they went to the police station is because the van that was involved in the accident with the boys on Friday night, the boys in town saw the van being repaired at a fitting shop by the bypass. Like, we have a new bypass in Akachi. So the guys went to take pictures of the fitting shop, and they felt it was a way, they felt the police was trying to cover up the story. That's temporary evidence. So that was why everybody moved to the police station that Sunday morning, and it wasn't fine. It wasn't fine at all. The boys were throwing stones, and the police also shot back with live bullets. They shot, and they shot one guy. They shot about 3 guys. One died in the process. His name is Hamza. And funny enough, Hamza is a cousin to the Jamilu guy who was on the bike the police guys ran. So now we've lost Hamza to yesterday. And then another guy named Agbuibo, he is not mentally well. So when the police were firing shots and things, he walked over to them and said, why didn't they ask permission from him before they were shooting? He's mentally retarded. But then unfortunately, he was also caught in the waist by a bullet. So he's also in critical condition and has been transferred to the whole teaching hospital. So basically, in short, that's what happened in Akachi yesterday, from Friday to yesterday.
So between these 72 hours or so, that is exactly what has transpired. But just to confirm a few things, you say, yes. So the phones of the gentlemen were taken so they could not reach out to family or anything. That you can confirm
yes.
that? Yes,
for the whole night, from Friday night. They took their phones. It was Monday morning that Jamilu was able to get a nurse's phone to make a call. So that's
so it was a nurse's phone that was even used to...
got serious, because if he had been rushed to the Reach Hospital in time, he might have survived. And he's just 20 years. And the other boy who died yesterday from the gunshot is also just 16 years. So it's a very sad story in Akachi.
And that's exactly why I'm asking, because especially in the case of Seto, if a call had been made earlier, who knows? I mean, we cannot conjecture whether he would have made it or not, but if it had been made in a timely manner, maybe he would still be alive today. But tell me, after the incident, post the incident, did the police take him immediately to hospital to get medical attention?
That's it. When the police knocked them down, they took them to the hospital and handcuffed them. And when they got to the hospital and they handcuffed them, they only bandaged Seto's head. That was what they did to him. And the whole night, they weren't able to reach their families. So, and then the police people branded them as criminals. So I think the nurses too didn't really attend to them the way they should. So if Seto was attended to that night, maybe he was checked and they realized the scar was deep, and then he was rushed to the hospital, maybe Reach or whole teaching hospital, he would have survived.
Right.
But the whole night, almost... But I say from when the thing happened to the next morning, he didn't get no serious medical attention. That's what the family say.
Right. So obviously there's some case of negligence in there. But for what reason did the police brand them as criminals? Break it down for us. I know there had been an incident before this bit where the police van hit these 3 on a motorbike. What had happened?
Yes. Okay, there's rumor that they said the police people said somebody snatched somebody's bag on a bike, like 3 guys on a bike snatched a man's bag about a day before. I think it's a day before. So the police people were looking for the suspects. And then the guys on the bike didn't know anything about that. They didn't know any snatching and they didn't know anything was happening. So they were just on the bike. But the police people in the van were looking for the person who snatched the bag. And it's quite difficult because the riot van is a riot van. And we have the Akachi police themselves in the station who are supposed to do these domestic crime cases. But then we all surprised the riot van was chasing the boys because of a crime in town. The guys, they are not criminals. They are not. Seto is the 3rd-year student at Akachi Sectech, and then he didn't snatch anybody's bag. It's very sad. It's not a bad boy. So it wasn't him. They didn't do anything.
All right, so we'll leave that to the criminal justice system to confirm. But I want to find out, so you're basically saying that the police had been told of 3 people on a motorbike who had snatched someone's bag or whatever days before.
Yeah.
And so when they
Yeah.
cited these 3 people who coincidentally were also on a bike, one person was riding the bike. He saw his 2 friends and gave them a lift.
Yes.
They put 2 and
Yes.
2 together and felt that these could be the people. Is that what you're suggesting?
That is what they're saying happened.
Right.
Yeah, that's what they set up.
Right. So based on that, is it on account of that, per what you know, that the police then went ahead to chase these people and eventually hit them against the guardrails?
Yes, that's what happened. That's what happened. That's what we are hearing happen.
I'm curious, the 3 gentlemen, I mean, if they had not committed any crime, why were they also fleeing?
No, they didn't flee. It was like they were just on a bike going. You know, yesterday I was talking to somebody and the guy said they didn't even hear the police people stop them. So they just realized when they were driving, they were right, they realized there was a police van chasing them. So they didn't see the police stop them, that's what they said. And then it's all just some way.
So it's a bit murky there because, I mean, if a police van is trying to stop you, you would have some idea. Yeah. They would likely turn on the siren, or maybe someone would, there might be someone using the voice bit to alert you and all of that. So it's a bit tricky there. No, we've heard of the fact that maybe, if I may, Salom, we've heard of the fact that because there were 3 of them on the bike, maybe they felt they were in breach of the law, and so they were trying to escape. Yes. Is that also something you've heard?
Yes, that's what we think too. Maybe they felt maybe it was 3 people on the bike, so the police might arrest them. That's why they were trying to go and then not be arrested. But then it's quite a sad story.
Hold for me, Salom. Let me also engage Wanda Gatape, who is assemblyman in that area. Wanda, thank you so much for joining the conversation. What story have you heard? What have you seen in respect of this development? Is it same as Salom's?
Hello?
Yes, Wanda, I can hear you now.
Yes, I didn't hear you well.
So I was asking, the story you have heard and what you have seen in the community, is it exactly the same as what Salom is telling us? Just tell us narrate your story to us.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I can also say that actually I wasn't in town before the whole incident started. I traveled out of town on that same Saturday for graduation program at Fofwe. So it was yesterday that I returned. But then I was monitoring the whole incident on social media. So what I heard is just similar to what, or same as what Dr. Salom just narrated. Yes, that is what I heard. So when I came back, I tried looking for the families of the deceased, and then we went to them just to go and then to console them, also to hear the actual story. And just as Brother Salom said, those were the news we also heard. So this morning we're also trying our best to get to the police to also hear their part. Because when an incident happens like this, you don't just listen to one side and then you draw your conclusion. So we intend going to see the police to hear their part.
Right. And have you been able to engage any of the affected families? What have they been telling you?
I didn't hear that I said well.
Have you been able to engage the families of either Setor or Hamza or those who were witness to the incident? Have you been able to engage any of them? And if so, what have they told you?
Well, we've been to some of the houses. We left with one, which this morning we spoke with them and we're trying to trace their house. So we've been to Hamza's house. We've been to Yao, that is Dagwebo, the one who is also in a critical condition now at Trafalgar. We've been to his house too, but we've not been able to meet the families. But we met some other friends in the house. So they narrated the whole story just as Brother Salom said. So no difference. So that's why we're trying our best to go and meet the police to get their part.
Right. Yes. Are you aware of any incidents involving criminals snatching baggage on motorbikes? I mean, is this something that has been happening in Akachi?
Not really. Not really.
When you say not really, what exactly do you mean? Is it a yes or a no answer?
Well, it's not something that is so common that we've been hearing. So when I hear the incident, that is the police, and they try to protect us. That is their work. So this one is not something that I witnessed myself. I only heard it from people. So until I get to the root, that is getting to the police to hear their part before I can even draw a conclusion. And then I know what actually to say pertaining to that.
Is this the first time something like this is happening in the Akachi municipality where people are gunned down on the back of any criminality? I mean, young people, something like this happening? Because there are those who say these incidents have been happening and that the youth of Akachi are being targeted.
Well, to say guns like this, it's not something that has been happening anyway. It is not that. When you talk about police brutality, I would say this is the third time this thing is happening in Akachi within the last 6 months. This is the third time this thing is happening. And within these 6 months, we are losing 3 lives. I don't know what is happening to the fourth person who is also in a critical condition this morning. I've not heard from them this morning. I spoke with the brother, but the network wasn't good, so I didn't actually get any truthful information as to how he's faring this morning.
Right, and fair warning to those of you watching, like you see the gentleman on the gurney, that some of these scenes may be disturbing for you to watch. But hold on for me, Wanda. Salom, Wanda, this is the third time something of this nature is happening, and youth have died. In this instance, we have 2 so far. For you, how many times have you seen similar incidents happen in the Akachi area? And is this one too many?
Yeah, in the last 6 months, this is the third time. Okay, this is actually, it's happened a lot of times. Boys complain about police brutality. I think people dying from police brutality, this is the second boy to die, apart from the gunshot guy. But then I think it was last month, one other guy, his name is Achu, he was brutally beaten up by the police. And then he had to go talk to the radios, and it was all over radio. And apart from that, well, another guy named Pepso, I think about last 2 months or last 3 months, it was January or so February, some supposedly national security people came to his house at dawn around 2 a.m., broke his door down and mercilessly brutalized him. So, and then there have been a lot of circumstances where boys have reported police brutalizing them in their homes, like they break their door, national security. It's been happening. It's something I'm asking the Ghana police to really investigate. It's been happening, and this is the reason why the youths don't trust the police any longer in Akachi. Like, the youths have lost the trust because of all these things happening. The police are supposed to protect the youths, but then it's rather unfortunate the police keeps brutalizing the youths in Akachi. It's something that has been happening. 2 people have died out, but then a lot more people have been brutalized. Right. And there are so many people ready to talk about how they got brutalized. Like, there are so many people who would want to speak up.
Wow. It would be interesting to hear from such people who want to speak up eventually. But let me find out. I'm curious. So there was a reprisal. I mean, the youth of Akachi took on the police. There was some vandalizing of police property and vehicles and all of that. Stones were pelted. And the police shot back using live bullets. That's what you said.
Live bullets.
Live bullets.
Yeah.
Right.
They used both the rubber bullets and the live bullets.
They used both rubber bullets and live bullets?
Yes. So we all picked part of the rubber bullets and the live bullets. We picked both of them. Like, people have the shells of the bullets.
So there's evidence. But of course, once it's been touched and all of that, it may be somewhat compromised.
A lot of evidence.
Right. So youth in Akachi also think there's some sort of grand cover-up. You spoke about the van earlier.
Yes.
What exactly is fanning this flame of a cover-up?
Okay. What's fanning this flame is that, you see, everybody felt an accident car usually impact at the police station for investigations to go on, because it's definitely part of the evidence. But then on Saturday, there was news in town that boys thought the van that had knocked down the guys at a fitting station being repaired. That is, so everybody felt it was an attempt by the police to tamper with evidence and cover up the whole thing from how it happened. And, you know, it's the last 6 months, the guy who died, the police hasn't done anything about it. You know, he was brutalized the last 6 months when he was brutalized, and then the issue we don't know what's happening. We just buried the guy last 2 weeks. And so people don't really have trust for the police in Akachi, like the youths and the elders don't. There are a lot of issues I don't have clues about, so I can't talk. But there are a lot of things happening where people don't trust the police again. And it's very bad, it's scary. Because I think some of us believe the police, we need the police because they are going to protect us if something should happen to us. But then if the police is now attacking us, it's a problem. We're scared.
Right. You say, and it's of grave concern to me when you say the police, the people in Akachi no longer trust the police. Because in this instance, for example, the act has been perpetrated by the police. So whom will the people report to? Obviously not the Akachi police station, because they are also mired in the matter. So that brings me to my next question. And maybe I'll pose the same question to Wanda first. But hold for me, Selim. Wanda, I'd like to find out, this lack of confidence in the police, is it something that has come to your attention in Akachi?
Yes, so to say.
What do you mean by so to say?
Yes, I said so because I would say this actually came to mind when we lost our brother 6 months ago. So simply because of that, there is much anger in the heart of the youth. Because of that, the youth just lost confidence in the police. That is what the information I've gathered on the ground so far as a leader.
So for at least 6 months, there has been that lack of confidence in the police service, and time and again, this is the third incident that we're having. So where then do you seek justice? Are you going to petition, for example, the Inspector General of Police? Have you reached out to the regional minister, for example, who is chairperson of the RegSec? What has been the move to get some investigation going into this matter?
Well, I would say, even as of yesterday, though I wasn't around, I was monitoring everything on the radio stations in our town. So I realized that when it got to a stage, I heard the regional commander and then the regional crime officer, including our MP and then our municipal commander. I heard them all on radio, trying to console the families and then to persuade the youth to prevail peace in the area. So for now, I would say the issue has already gotten to a higher level. So I believe as professionals at the top, they know how they're going to deal with this issue. So at this time, we want to leave it to them. We want to leave it up to them to see how best they can resolve the entire issue so that by the end of the day, peace will prevail in our town.
Right.
Yeah.
Do hold for me, gentlemen. I'll come back to you about what your expectations are. Selim and Co. Please hold, just hold for me. But let me also engage Adib Sani, a security analyst. Adib, thank you for joining the conversation. What do you make of this development? For starters, what do you make of it?
Well, it's an unfortunate incident. Some of us received the news with utter shock. Because for that many persons to die in the hands of the police is definitely a worrying phenomenon. However, the violence that we are witnessing is as a result of the mistrust people in the area have in the police. As a matter of fact, I have taken the trouble to speak with some 1 or 2 persons, and they pointed to previous encounters with the police, especially between the police and the youth. And there's widespread mistrust and lack of confidence in the police. And so sometimes some of these frustrations simmer until a trigger causes people to respond. So I think that this should serve as a unique opportunity on the part of the police to win the hearts and minds of the people by ensuring that proper investigations is conducted, by ensuring that if their men are found culpable, they should be dealt with according to the law. They should also give the opportunity to the police to reach out to the people in the area and to get them to buy into the idea that the police is their friend, which invariably would engender their trust and confidence.
Let's talk about evidence. Selom tells me that some residents there have, the police has been accused of using live bullets together with rubber bullets, and that they have evidence. On the other hand, we also have the bit concerning the van concerned, which supposedly rammed into the three on a motorbike, which again, allegedly was hastily repaired. Is this tampering with evidence?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but it's quite obvious. Even if there's a scratch on a police property, you have to report it. You don't have to make any attempt to even clean it with a brake fluid. And so the fact that there was a hasty attempt to clean up the mess obviously is indicative of an attempt to cover up, and that should also be looked into. In recent times, the police has been very high-handed, with respect to the fight against, armed robbers. Today, you hear 3 persons gunned down, suspected to be robbers. Tomorrow, you hear 5 persons. Then I asked the question the other day, how do we know that, the police is not abusing its powers? How do we know that indeed these people were legitimately gunned down? Because even if someone holds a weapon, until the person makes an attempt to lift it to shoot you, you are not in a position to fire back. And there's what we call the law of proportionality. I think sometimes they are being unnecessarily high-handed. And I do understand the psychological situation in which some police officers find themselves owing to some of their colleagues dying right before their eyes, them exchanging fire with armed robbers. So there's always that quick propensity to use force, deadly force, when you could have used other, forces before even escalating to that level. So I think we need to ensure there's accountability, so we don't have people killed unjustifiably, like it happened near Kumasi some years ago with the killing of the Zongo boys, and we were all told they were robbers, only for us to get to know that they were not. So what happened to that case? If we don't ensure that accountability, you create a cycle of impunity and get more officers into thinking that the uniform grants them invincibility, and that's not the way to go. Because, like I always say, it is in the interest of the police to ensure accountability, because without the people, there's absolutely no way you can do your job.
And again, going back to the incident that you talk of, yes, we would hear of interdictions and later compensation, but then that is it. We don't even know what happens to the officers in question. What more would you like to see done before I go back? I don't want to lose sight of that question.
Okay, so I think that when the IGP came, he was hell-bent on building confidence and trust in the police service. We've seen a lot of changes that's been made. However, it doesn't end there. We need to deal with the issues of accountability. Always, there's an internal process. There is addiction, like you rightly mentioned, and in the end, you don't know what becomes of that case. So I think that going forward, we need to have a robust, institutionalized regime to look into this. We shouldn't leave it in the hands of the police, because it's almost, would not be progressive if you are asked to investigate your father or your mother. So if you ask the police to investigate the police, what do you expect? So we need to have a board, made up of representatives from the police, from a multidisciplinary body of some sort, to look into some of these issues independently. If not, we would always have an attempt in some cases on the side of the police to cover up for two major reasons. One, because they don't want to be dragged into disrepute, and secondly, because they want to maintain morale. And I don't think that is the way to build confidence. All right.
Two quick issues I want you to address before I go back to Selim and the assemblyman. And I'll start from where you wrapped off, a cover-up. What should be done in such an instance? Because The youth obviously cannot go to the same Akachi police that they distrust or mistrust. So what process would you suggest that they follow? And maybe to add to that, Adib,
sure.
So what should usually happen? There's a lot of mistrust now. Should the officers at post be swapped? Should there be a replacement as an initial step to sort of build trust in the youth again?
That is standard practice. So far as we are in the thick of a controversy and an investigation is to be conducted, you have to step aside so you don't interfere with that process. So I would advise the youth to petition the IGP. And I would have also advised the IGP to quickly dispatch some investigators from Accra, not from Akachi, to look into the matter. And before they start anything, they should meet up. Even the police top command should meet up with the people through their chiefs and other opinion leaders and reassure them of their unflinching commitment to ensuring that the right thing will be done, and of course justice will be served before they get to work. And we Ghanaians generally also have not really over the years appreciated the workings of SHRAJ. SHRAJ has enormous powers. I mean, sometimes if you follow some routes and things don't seem to be progressing, I think we should take it to SHRAJ, and that sometimes also pushes some stakeholders to stand up and do the right thing. So, I mean, whatever means they have to explore legally. Certainly violence shouldn't be part of it. Should be explored.
Right. Jigbade is watching us live from the UK. She says, watching you live, it's sad what happened in Akachi. The police are abusing their powers. But quickly on the bit about using live ammunition. What is your take on that? I bring it up because we've heard it time and again. Rubber bullets versus live, bullets in there. What exactly should we be considering in this instance? Was it justified for them to use live bullets on the youth?
All right. So live bullets should be the last resort, and you only use live bullets when you've used all other means, and we have a lot of them. You can use the water cannon. You can use tear gas. You can use batons. You can use rubber bullets. Okay. Then the last resort would be live bullets, and that is when the life of the police or other innocent people is in danger, and they have no other option but to neutralize that danger. That is when they use live bullets. However, in many scenarios, the last resort is always the first resort, like we had at Ijera. Okay, when they arrive, start firing. And we had a similar case in Tamale with a young man's jaw almost dropping off his face.
Yeah, I remember.
And he's not gotten the justice. I mean, they called me just, I think, about a week ago. They've been making follow-ups, and nobody seems to pay attention to him. He's not able to feed. He feeds through a tube. No accountability whatsoever. So we need to get officers to understand that we have levels of force that can be used. And sometimes, situations can be de-escalated, as a matter of fact. But once you arrive and, that showmanship, that bravado, the people also become agitated. Then things just escalate and get out of hand. All right? So I think, one, we need to really look into the training regime to get officers to make wise decisions and not exaggerate the threats. I mean, there are situations where someone would insult an officer and he's cocking a gun. You get me? Someone is running from the police, you don't know why. It could be a license. Maybe his license has expired, then he starts firing. No. Secondly, we need to ensure that we curb that, cycle of impunity. People doing the wrong thing and not being held to account. And that is quite common, and that is what I must say on a larger note, encouraging more and more officers to do the wrong thing, hoping that their organs at the top would protect them. And that, I must say, is also wrong. So I think this should be part of a wider reform that really should be taken care of going forward.
Right. Adim Sani, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us, for engaging us on this bit. If we still have the Assemblyman and Selom, I'd just like to pick your final comments about what you want to see moving forward. Selom, are you there? Right. It appears we've lost them, but at least we've got different...
Yeah, I'm over here.
Selom, all right.
Yeah.
So what are your expectations
the line
moving...
is breaking, but I think it's okay now.
Very quickly. What are your expectations moving
your question
forward?
Again.
Hello, Selom?
What? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I'm asking simply, in some 30 seconds, what are your expectations moving forward?
My expectations?
Yes.
All right, what we're going to do is, just like Mr. Adib said, we're thinking about petitioning the IGP, with the whole issue, tell them stories, have people speak up. And then we'd also talk to try, just as you said, we're going to try and petition and make sure justice is done in this case. There's been other cases we weren't able to fight for justice because we weren't able to get the family on board. But this one, the guy's family, they're a bunch of educated people. And they are really as much angry as we the youths are. So this time around, I am very hopeful we're going to have justice in this case because we would follow up. So we're just praying that the news would also keep remembering, JoyNews would keep, remembering with everything we get to. If there's no justice coming, we would come say it, because sometimes issues die down in Ghana within 2 weeks and nobody does nothing. So we are hoping this time around the police would, there would be justice. And we hope the police in Akachi will be the people to investigate the issues, because they will still cover up a lot. So I'm just praying that the police would try and help, restore their integrity in Akachi. That way, there'll be peace.
Is a resident there. Wanda Ametepe, if you're still with us, you'll have the final bite as well, some 30 seconds. All right, thank you. We've lost Wanda on the line. But that is our conversation on that development in Akachi, in the Volta region. Let's move on now to talk about hanging homes. And experts are warning that parts of the Wager Hill close to the toll booth faces imminent collapse. They say human activities like sand mining and blasting of rocks have affected that part of the ridge. Hence, heavy rainfall or earthquake in the area could result in a landslide. Maxwell Agbagba reports that in spite of the warning, some residents say they feel safe. We'll bring you that right after this break.
The captivating view of part of the Wager Hill overlooking the Accra Cape Coast Highway. Beautiful view which continues to attract estate and private developers. A team of experts visited the Wager Ridge some weeks ago and passed a scary verdict. They say as a result of the human activities such as sand mining and quarrying activities, the hill has become weak and faces imminent collapse.
We are coming to you from the community on a hill, the Wager Ridge, which has been described by the Ghana Geological Survey Authority and Environmental Protection Agency as a ticking time bomb. But the residents here think otherwise. We hear from the experts and the people.
Very difficult for us to get to school because when we are climbing, when you step on the rocks, it's normally...
Here on a part of the Wager Hill, I've met 14-year-old Richmond Sikapa, the Form 1 student of the AME Zion School in Kaswa, just returned from school. He loves it here, but hates the tremor that he says usually occurs at night.
It was very terrible. Sometimes when it rains, the earthquake, it feels like when you are in the building, it shakes the building. So we become scared.
So usually it happens around what time? At night?
Yeah, sometimes. At night, sometimes at day.
Okay. Do you remember the last time it happened?
Last year.
Last year?
Yeah.
Okay. But can you tell, what is it like living here?
Yeah, when it rains, it becomes very cold here. So when you go to where they sell things to go and sell things, usually they don't come because of the earthquake. They are scared.
Okay.
So all the people hide in their room.
Okay. Samuel Okan has lived on the Wager Ridge since 2000. He says access to potable drinking water remains a challenge. He tells me that for a very long time, residents here have not had water flowing through their taps. He's concerned about the quarrying activities on the hill as well. But tells me that has stopped for some time now after the intervention of city authorities.
This place, our main challenges are the roads. There's no water.
Okay.
This place, the tremor, you can be there sometimes, you experience it twice or 3 times a day.
Wow.
Very sharp. You get up on your bed, then it's just gone.
Yeah. This is dangerous.
Yeah, they done it because they quarry the sand for other work at, I think, around Tetekwashi in Chajin. This is where they had the sand.
Okay.
To fill those places. So that side, there's an erosion part there, which it could be a landslide one day. That down there could be a landslide. Oh, living at that edge there is dangerous. And people still quarrying stones over there. You go there, they are there quarrying stones. And nobody, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Municipal Assembly, nothing is done about it. You go, you see them there.
Kwesi Davo has lived in this community for the past 2 decades. He tells me that as a result of the human activity on this hill, anytime it rains, there's a collection of silt onto the main Accra Kaswa highway, just some meters away from where I'm standing. It says that usually causes a gridlock on the stretch.
The road to the community, the road is very bad. And whenever it rains, the rain always wash away the soil from the road, and it's very difficult for the cars to come to the town. There's no dangerous at the top there. But when they started taking the sands from the mountain, they came to stop them, and they've stopped. But when you go to the top there just like where we are now. It's very safe and nothingness. So
and that was Maxwell Agbaba's report there. But we continue right here in the studio as we segue into another conversation that is very topical now. It has to do with the school placement, rolling on from JHS to SHS. In recent days and over a week now, we've had quite a concern. Parents crying here and there, complaints about the school placement system. It's been largely, as the papers have reported, successful. And even today we're reading about how quite a chunk of those who ought to be placed have been placed. But what are the dynamics when it comes to the school placement? What are the thorny areas to address? Joining us right here in the studio for a conversation is Kwesi Kwating, who is PRO for the Ministry of Education. He joins us here as we continue on this leg of the big stories. Good morning, Mr. Kwating.
Good morning, Ben.
It's a pleasure having you.
Oh, nice meeting you too. I think this is our second time also.
Oh, we've had quite a number of interactions even before, but from Prime Morning, I guess this is our second time in recent times. Just walk us through this. When it comes to the school placement 2022, from where you sit at the Ministry of Education, how has the process been?
Okay, thank you very much, Ben, and a very good morning to you once again and to your viewers. So if you ask me, just like the papers have been reported so far, satisfactory, but of course, I mean, just like Willie Batteries, you always ask for more, and so there's still room for much more improvement. And if you look at the entire process, for instance, starting from the selection process and to the placement, you see that there has been some significant interventions that has more or less made this whole placement successful, but of course we still have challenges. For instance, you cannot decouple the selection process from the placement process. Initially, you require students or candidates to select some choices of schools that they want. This time around, the minister said to give more opportunity to students so that you wouldn't have situations of I was not placed, the computer did not place me. He said that students or candidates were eligible to select 6 schools. Out of these 6 schools, you have the grade category A school, one of them category B schools, 2 of them, and of course, I mean, the rest being category C school, and even one of them being compulsory day school within your catchment area. And so that was with regard to the selection process. But after the selection process, the minister did something which was quite novel to prevent instances of I was not placed here. Of course, I mean, there could even be genuine clerical errors within the placement system. So he sent back all the selections that candidates have made to their individual phones and their numbers through a process called test for confirmation. So we are just required to approve or validate all the schools that you selected so that when there are any errors or where there have to be genuine concerns where we may have to commission some changes, we do it accordingly. So that process was done, and of course also the placement process was also done. And then the placement process, we had about over 555,000 candidates that were eligible for placement out of over 571,000 data that we received from WAEC. Not all candidates were eligible for placement because at the end of the day, not all students even or candidates even wrote the exams, the BC exams in the first place.
Right.
But quite apart from that, you also had some of the candidates who could not pass English and mathematics. So those of them, we gave them opportunity to go and write the BEC once again, also at the cost of the ministry, or also at the cost of the government. So you had about an excess of 555,000 of these candidates that were placed, where at least we had about 367,000 of them, a little over 367,000 of them that were placed through the automatic placement. So what was left was about 187,000 that were supposed to do what we call the self-placement. And of course, I mean, a lot of people thought that if they were not placed in any of their choices, they did not get school. No. What it meant was that you selected your safe choice, but probably due to the competitive nature and sometimes even the selection criteria and the procedure that you use, you might have missed your choice. But the Minister of Education, Dr. Owusu Afriyie, me saying that, look, if you miss your choice, we are unable to impose a choice on you. So therefore, we give you an opportunity to go and do the self-placement. Right. As I speak with you, if you look at the automatic placement and the self-placement, currently over 94% of students or candidates have been placed, which is we are left with around less than 6% that has not been placed. Of course, all of them.
So your figure appears to be higher than what we have here, per the Ghanaian Times, for example, which says that it's 93.4%. You're saying over 94%.
Yes, because each and every time the system is updated. So
that is why I'm just asking whether yours is an update on the figures. Yes, because they have here, I mean, the qualified number 555,353, and out of that, 518,717. Who qualify for placement have successfully been placed. So yours is an update.
Yes. So you have around an excess of 94% of students that has been placed. I think the only challenge that we may be having now is students or candidates that have been placed but might have not necessarily enrolled. I think the data stands around, I'm sure the graphic also reported, is around 63 or 64%. Maybe we need to confirm from the
right.
But this is what it probably means. A lot of the schools are also doing what we call manual enrollment. And so it's not recorded on our platform. And so we are unable to keep track of it. But of course, as at yesterday, we directed that all schools that even did manual enrollment should also do same on our platform so that we are able to track. So we believe that all students that have been placed will obviously enroll. And of course, I mean, students or candidates that have not enrolled, we also encourage them to enroll. Of course, I mean, the remaining 6% is what we are all looking for. This could be candidates who probably have not even checked their results or have not even checked their placement. But as I speak with you, we have an enrollment drive policy that we are implementing to make sure that at least all, if not the 100% that were eligible for placement enrolls, we will have close to 100%. So far, it's been satisfactory. And of course, I mean, you media people will bear with us. Unlike before, where we may have to take cameras to the Independence Square and see parents complaining and other things. This time around, the arrangement was not so. Because you had at least we haven't set up offices in the various regions.
But that Independence Square thing was a bit of a novelty. I mean, on the back of this entire school placement, it never was a way that, I mean, there were alternatives. We decided to do that at a point in time.
So it was
not as though it was a benchmark. It wasn't.
No, I'm saying that it was a response to a challenge that we encountered throughout the placement system, I mean, in the past. But this time around, we also brought an innovative response. Instead of probably clustering all Ghanaians at the Independence Square, this time around, we decentralized our resolution centers.
Right.
So you have, if you go to any of the 16 regions at the NAT offices, you have the resolution centers where our officers are there and assisting candidates or prospective students who may have challenges. And we also have a 50 capacity call center, where at every moment, at every second, they are responding to calls and addressing some of these questions. So I'm sure all came together to probably ensure that what Gabriel is reporting, that at least the placement has been successful.
Right. For those of you watching us this morning, I just want to say that we'll give you opportunity at the right time when we activate the phone lines for you to call in and share with us what your concerns are, whether your child or ward has been placed or not. What are the hurdles you faced in terms of the school placement system? That will help Kwesi Kwarteng and his ministry, his minister, Dr. Owusu Afriyie, to also fine-tune the process. So just stay with us, and when the phone lines are activated, you can call in and share your thoughts. On the back of what you said about self-placement, I'm quoting the minister here. He says, I wonder why some parents waited till schools reopened before they started rushing to do either self-placement or rushing to the resolution centers across the country, which were virtually empty during the first week of the placement exercise. What sort of orientation did you give parents and students on the back of this, in terms of their knowing what to do right off, the bat?
So if you recall, even initially, before the placement was released, the release came, I think, on the 26th of March. Before that, we came out with a presser. There was some media engagement. We have liaised with the various schools and our regional free SHS coordinators to, of course, disseminate the information on how the placement has been done and how you are able to check your placement. And if you fail out to make up with any of your 6 choices, there is an option for self-placement. Usually, the challenge is not about parents not knowing whether or not to do self-placement, especially if they did not match up to any of their 6 choices. The challenge has rather been that they are bent probably on getting new schools that they might have not even selected in the first place. And of course, I mean, there are also situations where you see that you place a student within all the 6 choices that they made with any one of them. And then you have all of them coming to our resolutions and say that, look, I selected a school, all right, but I don't need it. A lot of them too comes and say that you place that in this school, you place that in that school.
Right.
We did not select. Then you prove further and request for their, placement slip, and you realize that these were schools that they selected. So the challenge partly is also on the wards, who in their quest to probably look for better schools, in quotes, for their wards or children, may troop into our centers to change schools. And of course, I mean, changing school will mean that we may have to displace your ward, who probably overqualified for a certain placement. And when it comes like that, we are a bit restrained in just following that and changing schools for parents. And that culminates into that. So a lot of them wait, hoping that their schools will be changed. Even as I speak to you today, our resolution centers are working. Go even look at
if the placement system were working as efficiently, as effectively as it ought to, do you think we would be having these problems? You know why? Because I engage parents, and a lot of them, one instance, some people tell me that, nowadays when your child or ward is in an international school, and I have some of them come, and a number of them, once your ward is in an international school, if they don't make all ones or something very close, they are going to struggle to get the big schools. Why? Because there seems to be this understanding that they are in the international schools, they get the best of everything, and they should be getting the best grades. If you fall slightly out of, all ones or anything close, you're not going to get the top schools. And some of them are lamenting the situation. What is your reaction to that?
So, I mean, they are referring to the private schools, actually?
Yes, the international schools.
Okay. So, if you look at that, I mean, recently there was also an allegation that even when it comes to the marking of their scripts, WAEC is quite unfair to them. And WAEC responded that they have to come out with evidence on that because the facts does not speak same. I mean, clearly, if you look at even the number of students that passes in terms of they're getting all the best grades and others, it has always been the private schools because we admit that when it comes to our public schools, we really need to do more to improve in terms of quality because, I mean, the minister have always insisted that especially at the basic level, a lot has to be done to improve quality. So if you look at on the face of all the facts that we know and all the evidence available, it is rather even the vice versa. I'm sure what they are...
No, but the point isn't that. What you're saying is something we've known over time.
Yeah, I'm coming there.
The international schools or the private institutions...
I just wanted to lay a premise. I just wanted to lay a certain foundation. What they are probably talking of is about a certain quota that is allocated to the public schools. That is 30% of the placement, especially within these overly subscribed schools. So you have the Chimotes, you have the Presec Lagos, you have the Wegehes, which is given to candidates coming from the public schools. Because, I mean, even from the start, you know that these are candidates that are unable to score probably greater grades. So there is that, in terms of bridging that equity gap, there is a policy currently that considers them for about 30% for these overly subscribed schools. I mean, those schools that you may call the pitch schools. So I'm sure that is where that complaint is coming from, that probably is unfair. I mean, I've heard parents also raise such concerns, especially those who happen to be in the private schools, that is unfair, that I apply for probably Gehe and I get 6, and somebody from a public school probably gets 10, and the person have an upper hand than me. But of course, I mean, when it comes to issues of public policy, as to whether or not it's unfair is a debate that probably we can all look into other day. Because at the end of the day, there is also a certain level of unfairness that policy is trying to correct. So that conversation...
I mean, any form of bias would come with its...
Yes, but at the end of the day, yes,
whether you
favor somebody, yes, it also favors somebody. So that is, if that is probably what we are looking at, then we have such a policy that currently is there. As to whether or not such a policy should be reviewed is a conversation that we can all have. What it also means is that if I schooled in Asante Achimdomyabra, where I come from, probably there is no opportunity ever for me to be in any of these early schools, what you may call those category A schools. And I mean, clearly, we cannot pretend that a student probably having an opportunity or schooling in, let's say, Morning Star, or any of these private schools, especially even some of the international schools, in terms of their performance, will be as the same as somebody in any of the...
So you admit, you admit that there is some segregation,
yes,
some bias towards the international schools because of their own standards, because of their performances over the years and all of that. And a parent told me that in addition to all of this, they get the feeling that you think because they are able to take their wards or children to international schools, so even if they don't get the mainstream schools, they can still continue with private education, which is not necessarily the case.
No, not really. I'm not sure the suggestion is that there is a biasness against the private schools. Rather, there is a policy to bridge some equity gap.
All right. So that point you've made. Tell me, the 30%, which schools are affected? Is it all A category schools, A and B category schools? Break it down for me.
No, it's all schools.
Which schools?
It's all schools. It's all schools.
No, I mean, so the 30%, it cuts across all the schools.
All schools, yeah.
Right. So what component goes to, let's say, category A schools? Because that is where a lot of the fire is.
No, I'm saying that the 30% of the declared vacancies, in terms of the consideration is given to the public schools. So what it means is that the other 70% is what they are all going to compete for. But it will interest you to know that we won't even strike it down.
Right.
The private schools still even, how do you call it, take up even largely all the space within the 70%. So if you're also not careful, you may have a situation where if you attend a public school, you may never have a chance to be in a category A or category B schools. You may have to dwindle at the category C school, which may not necessarily be good for improving educational outcomes, the overall educational outcomes as a country, right. And of course its effect on educational transformation, as education being a key component to educational transformation.
All right. So a quick question, lest I forget. I mean, this is something I would have reserved for later, but you mentioned that not all places had been enrolled or taken up.
Yeah.
What eventually happens, because there will be people who may have been given this or that school who may want those opportunities. Do you have a timeline within which you will say, if by this time you have not enrolled, we're going to give this spot away to someone else or something of the sort? What's the policy?
Okay, so as at now, if you look at the declared vacancies, for instance, the overall declared vacancies is around 580,899. Now let's compare this, or just suppose with the qualified students to be placed. If we look at the total number of students that are supposed to be placed, that's 555,353. So clearly, even if you want to place all students, you still have some declared vacancies that you may not still be filled up at the end of the day. And so it is not possible that the student may not get a school to attend.
Right.
What is possible is that you may not get your choice of school. But to say that you did not get a school, it is not possible. But of course, I mean, like you rightly asked, there are students that have been placed and have not necessarily enrolled. Of course, I mean, our duty is to encourage students to enroll. As at now, if you look at the enrollment statistics, around 63-64% I need to confirm. But like I said, that is the data that we have on our database. Because a lot of the schools opted for manual enrollment. And so we may have to, reconcile their data with ours before we are able to come out with the real enrollment data. That's why you are able to know which numbers are left for you to deal with. But of course, we are very optimistic that more than 95% of students should take up their enrollment, because I mean, these are students that a lot of them were placed within the automatic placement. Those who were not placed within automatic placement also took up their placement within the self-placement.
Right.
Of course, there has been also some manual placement that the ministry has been doing when it comes to students with special needs and those from the seminarian categories and other things that we are also doing.
We have some people sending in messages, and like I mentioned, we'll try to activate the phone lines as well to pick your thoughts. But before we get into those briefly, the categorizations of schools, A class and B class, how do they happen? Do they happen year on year based on the performance of the schools? I mean, I just want a quick understanding of the process.
Yes, so there are a lot of variables that goes into it. One of the key variables is even the subscription rate of the school.
Right.
So you have a school like Achimota, Pesek, Legon, Wesley Girls being excessively subscribed, or if I want to use that word. And of
oversubscribed.
Oversubscribed. And then sometimes you also look at the performance of such a school. And you see, the subscription rate certainly has some level of complementarity or relation when it comes to the performance. Because when students overly subscribe, what it means is that you may have to place the best students there, because in terms of the ranking, you are going to look at the best of grades, the best of raw scores to be able to place such students there. So definitely, it's going to outcome as the school doing well. So their performance too is very key. You also look at even their infrastructure in terms of a school having all the key infrastructure, their laboratories are intact. Even sometimes the international recognition may come in. Look at a school like Manfred Girls recently. They did robotics at Manfred Girls.
Oh, right.
Methodist Girls at Manfred.
Yeah.
They did robotics, had some level of international recognition. And this year around, if you look at the subscription, it's so wonderful. What it means is that it's possible that in the subsequent years, there could be a school like probably plays in category A. And there's also a situation where even sometimes regional balance also comes in, where as part of the ensuring regional equity, you may also have to get some, let's say, category A schools within a certain region or a certain catchment area. So these are all some of the variables.
So those are the variables to look at. I posed that question, linking it to the fact that some parents have complained that as of the time we were making the placement for our children, our wards, this school was, let's say, category B. At the time when the results come out and the placements have come out, that school is now category A, which means that I selected it maybe as my second choice and all of that based on the categorization then, which has changed. And so automatically, they are not taking me because I chose them as my second choice or third choice and all of that, but they have moved out of that. So they are not even taking my ward, while my ward should have qualified for that institution.
It can't be possible on the basic explanation that you see how the system was programmed. You are only eligible to select one category A as a first choice. That is, even if you want to select as a category A school.
Right.
Then you have category B schools, 2 of them you select, which after you select, even is not going to give you an option to select another category B school. Of course, when you look at the category C schools, they are unlimited.
Right.
The categorizations of the school came before the selection process.
So the point to be made is you stick to the categorization as of when.
Yes, because
the placements are made.
it can change. You see, what usually is happening is the challenge where parents feel that my ward had probably grade 8, but he did not get the opportunity to be in Presec Legon, while the other person's ward also had the same 8 and had the opportunity. So this could be the reason. First of all, for instance, let me give you an instance. Ben, 400 students had grade 8, and all of them probably subscribed or selected Presec Legon as their first choice. Presec Legon, in terms of their declared vacancies, has 200 for general science. What it means is that out of these 400 who all had grade 8 or grade 6, we cannot necessarily rely on their grade again. We may have to move to their raw score. You understand? So moving to their raw score will mean that we are going to deny some students.
Now there'll be more segregation because both of you had 1, and someone had 85, another person had 75.
Then there is also an instance where you may even have to look at the program. I select general science. Somebody selects general arts. In terms of general science, the vacancy declared is 200. In terms of general arts, the vacancy declared is 300. We all had grade 8, but the general arts makes it. There can also be situations where you even have to look at the residential status. You select boarding, I select day. We all had grade 8. In terms of boarding, there probably is full, but in terms of there is an opportunity for me. Then I'm placed, you are not placed, the same grade. So you hear the parents complaining. But when that happens, what it means is that after you fail or you probably could not match up to any of your first choice, we bring you to your second choice, which obviously could be a category B school. But remember, that category B school, which probably is your second choice, could also be the first choice for somebody. And at that time, by the time you get there,
and that's the problem. That's the problem, isn't it?
No, it can be a problem. You see, it is not as though when schools are full, they are given to, they are filled in a vacuum. No. They are also filled by candidates who also selected it, who are Ghanaians, who also wrote the exams. So it is not as though if you miss your first choice, somebody did not get it. It is not as though if you miss your second choice, somebody did not get it. Somebody's ward also had it. But because you did not get it, you may be complaining and the person could enroll. It doesn't mean the process is unfair. What it means is that based on the competitive nature, you could not make it. So it is a more reason why we usually advise that you have to measure yourself before you select certain schools. You know that the exams, you are unable to probably score 6 ones. You go and select Presec Legon, and then probably Agri Memorial as your second choice. After the exam, you get 12. It's possible you are going to lose out on the Presec Legon, especially if you meet a tougher competition from other candidates who probably might have had better scores than you. Then we come to your second choice, which is Agri Memorial. Remember, the same Agri Memorial could also be the first choice of somebody, and you may also mix out. So you have
Agri Memorial, is it a B class school now?
It's a category B school, yeah.
So it's now category B?
Yes.
Because I know they fluctuated between A and B at some point.
Yeah, it's category B within this year's placement.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying that. So based on that, it's possible you are going to miss out on all your sales choices. But let me state this. All candidates who had from aggregate 6 to 12 this year went through the automatic placement. All candidates that had aggregate 6 to 12, probably from 13 downwards, that's where you may have to go and do placement. That is if you are unable to match up with any of your 6 choices. But of course, we have to let parents know that first of all, we are unable to place you in a school that you did not select. in terms of the residential status.
So that point is made very quickly. So if this many people are unhappy with their placements because they did not get where they wanted, and I feel
but they selected them. But they selected them.
The grades should let the chips fall in their proper places. We have a message coming through. This one says, how do the re-entry candidates also check their placement? The re-entry candidates, how do they check their placement?
Re-entry, the briefing I have is that they are still working on it, because I mean those ones, they have to do the manual placement, not the automatic. So I'm sure communication,
not self-placement.
Yeah, the re-entry is those that completed their BEC exams. I mean, somewhere for the past 3 years, for the past year, and some reasons, one or the other, probably could not take up their initial placement to their various secondary schools.
Right.
So the ministry also gives them an opportunity that, look, even though you've been home for some time, we're still going to give you an opportunity. So those guys, they were made to fill a form through, how do you call it, a specified link. And I've been briefed that because theirs is a special case, it is not part of the automatic placement or the self-placement. So a communique will come to that effect.
All right. Let's quickly get into this bit about teachers' uniforms. We've seen pictures. Social media has been awash with such pictures and all of that. Almost a reflection of the Kukuntini Abenkwai, but a version that is teacher-like. How true is that?
I mean, this is an unofficial position. I didn't like the colors. It wasn't nice. Even if
you didn't like the colors?
No, I didn't like the colors. It wasn't nice. if that was to be the uniform for teachers, I'm sure it probably is a poor job. And I'm not, personally, I'm not the uniform bias. I'm not the uniform person. Left to me, everybody should be allowed to wear whatever he likes. That is an unofficial position anyway. But I mean, let me state clearly that so far as the Ministry of Education is concerned, we have not had any such engagement. We have not had any such consultation. We have not had any such discussion with whatsoever individuals concerning introducing any form of uniform for teachers in Ghana. I mean, Benjamin, you look at the teaching force. If you look at the entire labor forces around of Ghana, you are looking at an excess of 600,000, close to 700,000. Teachers form over 50% of it. It's around 350,000. It is not possible for anybody to introduce an attire for teachers without consulting them. Not even their unions, NAGRAT, NAT, CCT. And all of a sudden you get up one day and say that, hey, look, these are uniforms, take them. And there is no official correspondence to that. And all you see is trending. Of course, I mean, people are already angry at us. Is
there no plan? Is there no plan for teachers to have uniforms? I mean, in the past, some schools have said this and that about students. Is it to say that there is no plan whatsoever for teachers to have specific uniforms to use?
In the present.
In the present.
So far as I am concerned, we have not had any such discussion. A discussion that even projects into the future. There has not been any such approval from the ministry's end that, look, we are going to give teachers attire. I said that I look at it, wasn't nice. So
but the fact that, I mean, Mr. Kwante, the fact that you look at it and find it not to be nice.
No, Honorable Edichum has eyes for nice things. If he is to supervise this thing, I'm sure it would have been nicer than this. But I mean, as of now, we don't have such arrangement to give teachers shares. So they should chill. Yesterday, I read some of the social media comments. Some of them you read and you have headache. It was, I mean, a section of them likes it. A section of them still feels that they don't want it. But we don't have such. There has not even been such conversation.
Okay, Kwesi, let's just do this very quickly. Maxwell from Pokwase joins the conversation. Maxwell, what are your quick thoughts for Kwesi?
Hello.
Maxwell, what are your quick thoughts, please?
Yeah.
Hello, Maxwell.
Well, my quick thought. The first one is with regards to what he said about Manfi Methodist girls.
Right.
Manfi Methodist girls was a grade B school. So my daughter chose it as a second choice school. But apparently it is a grade A school. But on paper, it's still a grade B school. So when they were doing the school selection, it was a grade B school. Now, secondly, so my daughter didn't get her first choice, didn't qualify. She qualified second choice, which happens to be Mass Methodist Girls. But Mass Methodist Girls is grade A school. Now, the other thing is, I got myself involved with a placement agent. We know it's illegal, but it's something parents are doing. So there is this placement agent by name Stanley, and he has been referencing the PRO. So he has been dealing with me. I got involved with him, paid 3,000 for him to have my daughter placed at a school in Accra because of her health challenges of late. He didn't do it. For me to get my money back to become a hassle, he won't refund my money. Then he kept on saying his wife is a police officer at Achimota police station. So out of frustration, I walked to the Achimota police station to ask if his wife really there. And lo and behold, I met the wife. The wife refunded my money to me, 3,030 cedis. Then I came home and heard that the husband called and was saying that.
All right, so point well made. But you say the person was involving the PRO. How?
He's been mentioning the PRO. He said the PRO is his friend. So I've done a full publication.
The PRO is what? The PRO is what?
His friend.
Okay, all right. This is.
So I have done a full publication.
Right,
it's
right.
published on GhanaWeb.com, GhanaWeb, and Modern Ghana.
Okay, Maxwell, right?
Yes.
Point made. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's get to our next caller. Do we have another caller on the line?
We respond or we will take all of them. Then I have to be taking notes.
We're just taking about two.
Okay, that's
Abigail, thank you for joining. Very quickly, what are your thoughts?
Good morning.
Good morning, Abigail.
My thought is about the distance in which the students have been placed. For instance, I had one of my nephews who had grade 12.
Grade what? 12?
12, yes.
Okay.
He was placed at Kumasi Wesley Girls. Then, later on, we went to check the next day. Yes, 12. Then we realized that the placement has been changed to Edigency Senior High School. But now the distance, when we went there to, he has been given a date. And he cannot move from Kumasi to Aguna, as I am speaking. So this is a very serious challenge as well. Then also, I want to draw the attention to the GES that the teacher laptop issue, now some of us are not getting it. We generated the code and they are telling us that we were not part of the batch. We filled a form, but still we are not getting it. So please, they should work on it for us. Since the money have already been deducted. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Abigail. So two quick thoughts there. If you can address them in less than a minute, I'd be very
so
good.
the first caller said Manfred Girls was a A school.
Manfred Methodist was C, but now it's supposed to be A, something of the sort.
No, he said it was an A school.
He said that at the time he was applying, it was a grade C school, but now it is a grade A school. That is what the person is saying.
Okay, that's fine. So first of all, Manfred Girls in this year's arrangement has been a category B school.
Okay.
It has never been a category C school. But of course, if I also heard him, I'm sure that's what he heard. I think in the later part of what he said, he mentioned that he earlier on selected an A school, and then this one too, if I heard him A. The point is that the system would not even allow you to select two A schools, what I also heard. I'm sure probably other people might also have heard what I said. But whichever way.
It brings in the bit about Goro Boys, and supposedly one of them is even using your name.
Yeah, I heard it, and it's interesting. I am not surprised because, I mean, there has been even instances where people even use the minister's name. This is not the first time that we are seeing issues of extortion within such an arrangement, especially where there are.
So just for the sake of time, that is totally untrue, right?
No, I wouldn't know if somebody is using my name in the first place. Why would
the point is you have nothing to do with any of these.
Come on,
I'm just giving you the opportunity to.
I should be above such things, and I am unable to do that. But before that, I think Benjamin, if you allow me,
unfortunately, we don't have the time. So maybe if you could respond to Abigail.
Press statement cautioning parents on that.
Right.
And we expected that parents would have been responsible. At least if you don't want to even take up your placement, you come to our resolution centers and resolve whatever outstanding issues that you have. But to go and have such an arrangement is quite unfortunate and should not be encouraged, if you ask me.
Right.
Then on the issue about Abigail, I think spoke about the
15 seconds, if you can.
The teacher laptop.
Right.
I think is an issue that I'm sure GS may have to respond to it. As to, I don't have a current briefing on that as to where the level, but I knew that as far as I'm concerned, the distribution was ongoing. But then she made a statement about they being deducted from their salary.
Right.
That is not the case.
Okay. Kwesi, we're going to have to end it here. Kwesi Kwarteng, PRO for the Ministry of Education, joining us. The conversation will continue as we get more answers as and when they are available. My name is Benjamin Akapu. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Oh, now.